I'll just give it one more minute and then we'll get going. Please feel free to type into our chat box, introduce yourself. I will just move on and see whether you can answer this question whilst we're waiting for everyone else. Okay, for those who attended last month, we actually discussed modelling. Which one do you think is correct? So feel free to introduce yourself, feel free to tell us who you are, where you come from, and then think about typing 1 or 2 into the box. Which one do you think is right? Modelling is when you show your class live the learning journey. You are demonstrating how to successfully complete a task, or modelling is just presenting. It's about doing the task for the students. Do you think it's number 1 or number 2? Just to get us going, getting us warmed up. Think it's number 1 or do you think it's number 2? Ibrahim, feel free to send me a message. That's absolutely fine. I can see you've got your hand up. Do you think it's number 1 or do you think it's number 2? Type it into the text box. Just possibly wait for others to join us. Do you think it's 1 or do you think it's 2? Number 1 or number 2? Modelling, number 1, modelling is when you show your class live the learning journey. You are demonstrating how to successfully complete a task. Or is modelling just presenting, just doing the task for the students? Think it's number 1 or do you think it's number 2? There is some information on the left-hand side of the board to help you. Number 1 or number 2? Okay, I'll just give it 2 more minutes and then we'll get going. I wouldn't want to keep anybody waiting. Welcome to those who have just joined us. Lovely to see some familiar faces and some familiar names. How fantastic. First task whilst we're waiting is on the board if you would like to take part. Do you think modelling is number 1 or number 2? Is modelling when you show your class live a learning journey? You demonstrate how to successfully complete a task? Or is it just presenting? Is it a type of presenting? 1 or 2? Okay, I am not going to wait any longer because I want you to be on time. Hi, everybody. Yes, lovely. Keep typing in our text box for us. Okay. All right. So I'm going to get going just because I don't want you to keep anybody waiting because this is only a 15-minute workshop. So Festus has got his hand up. Ibrahim's got his hand up. Please feel free to type straight into the text box. Okay. And to write down any of your questions or any of your answers if you think there is a specific answer that you've got. Okay. 1 or 2? Okay, so let's get going. Modelling. Now, modelling is really important to, we discussed this last workshop. It's really important to model good habits in the classroom. We are role models to our students. It will help them to complete work independently. Last workshop, we recapped modelling. If you missed this, it is available on our YouTube channel. Okay, Festus has said number 1. Thank you, Festus. Absolutely. It is number 1. Number 1, you show the class the learning journey. So you show them live exactly how to complete the learning. And you practice exemplars. If you missed this and you would like to see more, it is available on our YouTube channel, and it's also available on the Teach2030 area of on the Teach2030 workshop area of our workshop. So today, what we're going to look at, we're going to look at your role during independent learning, and we're going to look at it in 4 ways. Modelling good habits in the classroom, which we just had a little look at. Review what you, the teacher, does when learners are working independently. Consider how to pause and assess learning during the lesson. And learn non-verbal cues and techniques. So We're looking at the idea of completing independent learning today. So what do we mean by independent learning? So there's lots of different discussions about this, but independent learning is working through a task individually using the resources that you have provided. So you are asking students to individually complete a task. So you are not leading from the front. What you are hoping for them to achieve is to complete a task successfully by themselves. Now, this can happen both inside and outside of the classroom. Outside of the classroom, you might set them homework. You might ask them to look something up on the internet or in the library. Inside the classroom, this might be me as an English teacher. I might ask my students to complete some punctuation tasks by themselves. I might also ask them to write some of the story by themselves, okay? Now, if my students are doing something and I'm not needed at the front to present, what is my role there? What should I be doing in that situation if my learners in my classroom are completing a task by themselves? So the teacher's role is the same if you're doing a group work with your students or whether they are doing it individually. So let's say that you want them to complete a punctuation task, but do it in a small group, 3 or 4 of them. What's your role during that task? So let's have a little look at what we can do. Teachers' role is to make sure that learners have the equipment and the resources that the students need to be able to work independently. If I'm asking them to complete a punctuation task, perhaps they need the worksheet. Perhaps they need the pens and the paper. Obviously, we'd hope our learners bring those along, but you never know. Timings are clear, telling them exactly how long they've got to complete a task. It's no use saying, okay, complete this task. Do we have half an hour, 10 minutes, 5 minutes? Make it clear. Look at the clock. If you're lucky enough to have a clock in your classroom, make it very explicit to them. You have 5 minutes. So you have until 2:10 p.m. to complete the task. Make sure you move around the classroom, ask questions, peer over shoulders, look at progress, encourage tasks. You do not need to stand at the front of your classroom. You can walk around. Now, there is a really super video coming your way as a post-event resource. I'm sorry that you can't hear me, Ibrahim. Possibly it might be your end because I think I was conversing with Cheryl before. Please let me know, everybody else, if you cannot hear me. Thank you so much for confirming that you can. So yeah, there's a great resource coming your way in a post-event resource, and it's a video that tells you exactly how you can move through your classroom. There is no pressure to just stand at the front. Now, one of the acronyms that I really like to think of when my learners are working by themselves in the classroom, so they're working in groups or they're working individually to try and complete a task, I think pause and reflect. So that's how I summarize what the teacher's role is in the classroom. I pause and I react. So let's have a look at pause first. You can see that each of the letters stands for something different. P, pay attention. Look for changes in the attitudes or behaviours. Are your students completing the activity or do they look confused? So stand at the front, pause. Over there, we have Precious. Precious isn't looking at the worksheet. He's looking out of the window. Does he not understand the task or is he distracted? Okay, so I'm paying attention, asking questions. Are they answering and completing the task correctly? Clarify with no hands up or quick fire. So maybe I'm moving into my classroom now and I look down to a pair who are working together. I'd look over their shoulder. Are they answering and completing the task correctly? I can see they are. Maybe I don't need to clarify with a quick fire question. Maybe it's appropriate for me to ask the question. Use your expertise. Determine if you need to re-explain the task. There's no shame in this. If your students are struggling, do you need to step in or let them work it out for themselves? What we mean by this is sometimes, I have done this so many times, I've explained a task, allowed my students to get going, and then realized that none of them are doing it. Now, there is no shame in me turning around and going, clearly I've not explained this as well as I could have done. So I count my students down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop, let me re-explain to you what I would like you to do. Firstly. Secondly, there's no shame in this at all, okay? However, sometimes you will have a student who's struggling, and often we need to let them try and work it out for themselves and persevere and learn that skill of persevering. S, show interest, circulate the classroom, ask students how confident they feel completing the task. Be interested in them, understand how they feel about something. E, evaluate, consider if the task is pitched correctly. Write these reflections on your lesson plan for next time you teach this activity. Quite often I don't teach a lesson just once. I save it, put it in my learning portfolio and keep it for next year. If you're lucky enough to do that and something has gone really well and they have completed the independent task beautifully, or you've done something as a teacher that you feel your role during the independent learning, then what you can do is write it down and think that was a really good idea. Please feel free to comment whether you use any of these ideas, okay? Please do that. Now, what I've said at the bottom is that there are verbal, so there are words and non-verbal cues, behavioural, that you can use to help you to understand your students. So a student looking out the window and not really paying attention, that would be non-verbal. Okay, if they've got their head down, and we all know, we've all looked at our students before with pen in hand, really scrawling away, that's definitely non-verbal. Verbal, you might hear and listen to your students interacting. If they're doing a pair work activity, you might hear them say the right answer. So there are things we need to look for that's verbal and non-verbal. So once we've paused, then we need to react and figure it out. So R, reach out. Create a team of experts. If there are students who finish earlier than others, so reach out to those who you know need pushing. Extend a helping hand. Do not be scared to assist or guide individual students who you think might be struggling. You might want to plan ways to help students beforehand, so differentiation. So if I'm setting the class an activity, but I know that the pair at the front are going to find it a little bit trickier than some of my other students, then I may plan during the independent task to sit with that pair. Not to give them the answers, but to provide the expertise if needed. A, assume the best. Maintain a positive classroom by thinking the best about your learners. Know when you should not react to. We had a little look at that in the last slide. But do assume the best in them. It's easy for us to assume they won't do that task. They won't do that independent task. I know they won't. But that's not a positive attitude for us to have. So always consider, plan correctly for your learners, or try to, but assume they're going to have a positive attitude. Create opportunities, planned ways to praise and celebrate your learners. What are you going to do when the students complete the independent task successfully? How are you going to plan for that? Tap into their greatness. Plan extension activities for those who you know will finish early. So we have pause and react. These are all different roles that you can use in your classroom whilst your students are independent learning. Now that was a lot to take in. Remember, please, to look out for your post-event materials, your emails. You are going to get this poster and you can print these out and put them on your wall. So we don't expect you to remember them by heart. However, a little scenario for you just to finish off. So I'm going to give you a scenario. What I would like you to think about is what the teacher could do in this situation. Okay, Mr. Zulu is teaching Year 6 geography. The independent task is that students must draw and label a volcano. Now, it doesn't matter if you don't know what the volcano is and how to label it up. That's not important. So that's what he expects his Year 6 class to do. Draw and label a volcano. Over to you. Type your answers in the comments box. So, provide Mr. Zulu with advice for the following situation. Mr. Zulu does not know what his role should be whilst the students are drawing and labelling a volcano. He comes to you and says, what should I do whilst they're doing the task? Can you please type in anything that you think that Mr. Zulu should do? Think back to our pause and react situation. What should Mr. Zulu do whilst his children are drawing and labelling a volcano? Should he just sit at his desk? Should he look out the window? What should he do? Anybody got any ideas? I'll give you a few minutes just to write them in. What should Mr. Zulu do? I mean, I wouldn't advise him to sit at his desk. What might he do? Please type in some answers. What should Mr. Zulu do? Anybody got any ideas? Mr. Zulu would need to go around to inspect and observe the efforts of his learners. Excellent, Moses. Thank you very much. Festus, Mr. Zulu should go around checking on learners and provide support. Excellent. Thank you so much. That's brilliant. Okay. Anyone else? What should Mr. Zulu do? I've got one more for you. Okay, ready for the new situation. Mr. Zulu notices that two girls are trying to label a volcano, but they are struggling. So he's circulated to the classroom and he's seen that two students are struggling. What should he do? What should he do? What would you suggest that he did in that situation? So he's got two people struggling at the front. What should he do? Should he just ignore them? Share an idea with us. Give individual support. Thank you, Roberta. Point students to resources that could help. Excellent, Roberta. Thank you very much. Those are brilliant ideas. Yes, he should, absolutely. If he knows that a student may be, oh, we've got another one. Festus, Mr. Zulu should use those who managed experts to help the girls. Brilliant. He could call their attention to first identify the parts of the volcano and try to label or spell by sounding the word. Excellent. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Perhaps Mr. Zulu should support in personal way and consider every person. Excellent. Thank you so much. That's a brilliant idea. He absolutely should. He could pair them. They could help each other. Super. Brilliant ideas. Exactly right. There may be a situation where you don't necessarily want to intervene. You want them to work their way through it. Perhaps he could have had some pre-prepared resources to help the girl. Absolutely. You've got some brilliant ideas there. Perfect. Okay. Final one. Mr. Zulu sees that two boys at the back are finished early. What does he do about that? So he notices that two boys in the back have finished early. What should he do? What should he do? Any comments? They could act as a resource. Absolutely, definitely, Roberta. The key I think about this is they have answered their questions. Mr. Zulu could engage them with more activities or have them oversee others. Excellent, thank you, Moses. He may ask them to assist the peers. Brilliant, thank you so much, Latha. The key about this is Mr. Zulu could do checking first that the boys have answered it correctly. Because even though they are finished early, it does not necessarily mean they got everything right. So once he's checked to confirm that the boys have got everything right, you're absolutely right. Give them extra work, not more of the same, something slightly different. Or you're right, they could help the others. But he needs to make it absolutely clear that they shouldn't just be telling their classmates the answers. They should be encouraging them in a way without just directly giving the answers away. Okay, have a look and ask new questions and consider their answer to improve their thought. Excellent, thank you so much. So let's summarize, because I've kept you for 20 minutes, so I need to finish up because we promised you it would only be 15. We should model the behavior we expect in our students, absolutely. Positive attitude, we've talked about this quite a lot today. If you missed our workshop on modelling, please make sure that you go and visit our Teach2030 website. You can absolutely review and recap it. Thank you so much, Moses, for being so supportive of our learners. It's lovely to see in the chat that everybody is so encouraging of everybody else. That's what we want out of our Teach2030 community. And please do feel free to comment and connect on Facebook or Instagram as you wish. Independent learning needs clear targets and explanation. Don't be scared to go back and review those targets, review those explanations. Perhaps you've given them too short an amount of time and you need to give them an extra 5 minutes. That's not a problem either. It's about you observing, pausing and reacting. If we encourage students to complete activities independent, circulate the room to help them. It's okay to not just stand at the front. We don't want teachers to just stand at the front. Look around the room, circulate it, pause and react. It can be difficult working out when to step in to help our students, when to leave them to problem solve. Again, pause, react. Post-learning discussions after an independent learning activity is completed. Let's workshop gives a chance to fill any knowledge gaps. It's also a chance to share useful methods, struggles that occurred during the independent learning activity. So how can we move forward from here? Well, I really hope that you enjoyed today's free workshop, and we have several ways that we would absolutely love you to continue your learning with Teach2030. Take our bite-sized courses. What you can do is visit teach2030.com and take our courses there. Attend more of our 15-minute online workshops. So we have another one in December, our final one of the year, and Cheryl and I are meeting up tomorrow to actually discuss January onwards workshops. So if you've got any feedback, please do feel free to email me so that we can take it all on board. Like us on Facebook and on YouTube at Teach2030. Please do connect there. You can find plenty of extra free resources as well. Sign up to our email newsletter at teach2030.com. As I've mentioned, everything we've covered today, and actually the Mr. Zulu activity as well in classroom scenario, it's all written up for you afterwards. So please do check the post-event materials to see and read them and continue professionally learning. Now, I am very aware that I have slightly run over, so I am going to finish it there. If anybody's got any feedback, please do let me know and please type it straight in. I'll give you just a couple of minutes, but thank you so much everybody for joining us today, and we really hope that you enjoyed it and have learned something from today's workshop. I hope you have a very good rest of the day. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I'll let you comment for a minute or two and then I'll close the meeting. Thank you so much.